Let's talk about something that looks, well, incredibly simple. Picture cards. You might just see a stack of paper, but don't let that fool you. Today, we're going to dive into how these little cards can be absolute game changers for boosting a kid's vocabulary, their creativity, and, their ability to tell a great story.
I know what you're thinking. How can you build a whole new world with just 2 little cards? Sounds kind of like a magic trick, doesn't it? But what if I told you that with just a couple of random images, a child can unlock an entire universe of stories? Let's find out how.
So, first up, we're opening the door to imagination with pictures. To really get this, we have to understand the basic idea at play here. It's all about how a child's brain just lights up in response to visual stuff. These aren't just pretty pictures. Think of them more like keys, ready to unlock all that creativity.
And here's the heart of it, and this is backed by a ton of research. When a kid sees a picture, it's not just a passive thing. It actively sparks the parts of the brain that handle language and emotion. This turns learning into this really engaging full-body experience, connecting words to images and, importantly, to feelings.
Okay, so we know visuals are powerful. Got it. But how do we actually put that power to work? Well, that brings us to our first and, honestly, incredibly effective strategy: building stories with picture cards. All right, let's break this down. The method is just beautiful in its simplicity. A kid picks 2 cards. Now, here's the real challenge, the secret sauce really. They have to connect them without using the easy phrase, and then this forces them to think way deeper about the relationship. Is it cause and effect? Is it a contrast? Something totally different? They write a sentence, then boom, they grab 2 more cards and keep building that story.
And the payoff from this simple little activity? It's huge. It pushes kids to see things from new angles and teaches them how to kind of steer their own imagination. Even if they don't have a huge vocabulary yet, they can create some really complex ideas. They're not just memorizing words, they're learning to be truly creative communicators.
And this quote right here, it just perfectly explains the magic ingredient. You'd think that rules and limits would crush creativity, right? But it's actually the total opposite. Having some boundaries, some simple rules of the game, actually gives them a safe space. It focuses that big, wild imagination, turning what could be a confusing flood of ideas into a story that actually makes sense.
So, let's move on to our next tool. Once a kid starts bubbling with all these new ideas, how do we help them see the structure, the blueprint that makes a story feel really good? Simple. We give them a map to find its skeleton.
This little grid, it's like putting on a pair of X-ray goggles for stories. By reading a fairy tale, or any story really, and filling out a chart just like this one, kids start to see the hidden building blocks of pretty much every story ever told. They learn to spot the hero, the villain, the big problem, and all the helpers they meet. It totally demystifies how stories work.
But this goes so much deeper than just a school exercise. Yeah, they're learning about story structure, but they're also learning that stories are really about the characters. And through those characters, they can explore real-life stuff, and they start to develop empathy. They begin to understand not just what happened, but why it mattered to the people in the story.
All right, so we've got story ideas, and we've got a structure. Now let's zoom in on one of the most important parts that really brings a story to life, the dialogue. And honestly, there's no better way to teach its power than through something kids already love: comics.
The big challenge with a comic panel is just how little space there is. You can't write a whole novel inside that tiny little speech bubble, right? And that forces a really powerful lesson in writing,
which is to focus on only the most important words. Kids have to stop and think, what is the one thing this character absolutely needs to say right now? It teaches them to be punchy, to be impactful, and to make every single word count.
And by doing that, they discover what really drives a story forward. They learn that dialogue isn't just characters chatting, it's action. A simple line like, "I must cross," shows you everything about a hero's determination. A single word like, "wait," can build so much tension. This is the power of dialogue. Every word has a job to do.
So yeah, this comic book approach is a total learning powerhouse. Kids are already fluent in this visual language, so it meets them right where they are. It sharpens their writing, makes it concise, and even gets them ready for things like writing scripts. It's just a fantastic way to build all sorts of different literacy skills at once.
So let's pull all these ideas together. We've gone from just 2 little cards all the way to the complex architecture of a good story. What does it all add up to? Well, it adds up to a feeling of empowerment. It's this simple belief: every child is an author. At the end of the day, these aren't just separate little games. They're a complete creative toolkit for a young writer. The visuals help new words stick, The rules help focus creativity, the grids teach structure, and thinking about characters builds empathy. It's the whole package for creating confident, creative storytellers.
And so, we're going to end with a question for you. With these super simple tools, there's a world of stories just waiting inside every child. All they need is a little spark. So, what story will you help them tell today? Thanks for joining me.